The Florida legislature continued their assault on working families during the third week of session. The Tallahassee Army of Destruction, hell-bent on the worker apocalypse, renewed their ongoing attacks on healthcare accessibility, public education, and employment conditions. These efforts on behalf of billionaire-funded out-of-state groups looking to destroy the working class are setting up a familiar fight for those concerned about the state's future.
You lose, they win. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Get ready for another wild ride as the clock continues to run down. A pair of bills in both the Senate and House aim to eliminate the Certificate of Need requirement for the construction and operation of new healthcare facilities.
Hey, bring down the bone saw!
HB 21 and SB 1712 will place public-funded hospitals in direct competition with private facilities who will get to choose their patients, creating a tiered system of care options. The burden would lead to the closure of public-funded facilities, threatening the healthcare safety net, which is the only source of healthcare for the most vulnerable families in Florida. Some legislators realized the dire consequences these bills would bring and stood up to the big-money private healthcare interests with hard-based scientific facts.
I will adhere to my friend and our presiding officer's call, which can currently be found on this chamber's website, and I quote, "Let our debate lean on the strength of our argument rather than the volume of our voice." If you agree with that sentiment, as I certainly do, I believe you have no other option than to vote no on House Bill 21. Numerous studies on procedures from coronary artery bypass surgery to colon cancer surgery have come to similar conclusions. Hospitals perform more surgical procedures, i.e. high volume hospitals, tend to have better outcomes than hospitals that perform fewer such procedures, i.e. low volume hospitals. Volume saves lives. This bill decreases volume. When mortality rates shift by mere percentage points in a state the size of the one that we represent, it means dozens and dozens of potential deaths. So please, join me in voting this bill down. You might just save a life.
The bill passed the House and the fight now moves to the Senate committees, where it will be our last chance to avoid this apocalyptic medical overhaul. For the third week in a row, public education was front and center in the legislature's attack. The debate over the new scheme to fund private schools with public tax dollars continued in both chambers. By choosing to fund vouchers instead of salaries for our teachers and programs for students, they are abandoning the future of public education. This funding method, previously ruled unconstitutional, will continue to exacerbate the teacher shortage looming in Florida. Due to the annual budget shortages in school funding, districts are finding it more and more difficult to retain quality educators.
I stand strongly opposed to Senate Bill 7070. Merit-based pay is a scam. It pits teachers against one another by forcing them to compete against each other for better wages. It excludes cafeteria workers, bus drivers, custodian workers, counselors, media center specialists, nurses, all of the workers who are necessary and valuable for our school community. And without the work of all of them, our students couldn't thrive and flourish. And it automatically disadvantages teachers at low-income schools.
In early elementary school, I had the option to leave the public school system, but I'm so glad that I didn't, because my schools have met all of my needs, and with adequate funding and flexibility could meet the needs of all students. Instead of allocating public money to private schools that only serve some, the funding should be given to public schools that serve us all.
The future funding of public education is not the only threat facing teachers, staff, and students. School safety was a major issue this week, with legislators ignoring overwhelming opposition from the general public and educational professionals, moving forward with arming public school teachers.
See, they were having a little problem in our schools. I said, no problem. All we have to do is marry our war machine with the basic educational model.
This attempted expansion of the Guardian program ignores the shortages in social and mental health services in the public school system. It is a cheap fix to a larger problem and ignores the root cause of the issue. Facing a multitude of speakers who traveled to Tallahassee to speak on behalf of school safety, the Senate postponed their bill to allow for public testimony.
It would be far more offensive to you for me to try to slam this bill through committee with a lot of people coming from out of town than it would be for you to have to come back.
The House heard their version of the bill the following day, and teachers, educational professionals, and parents stood up for school safety.
Many parents, students, and teachers do not want to arm teachers in the classroom, even those of us that are properly trained in firearms and possess a higher degree of discernment in active shooter scenarios with military or law enforcement in our respective backgrounds.
I'm not allowed to have a microwave, a lamp, nor a Febreze plug-in in my room with students. Where would I keep a gun safe, yet accessible during an emergency? I don't even have a locked cabinet in my purse.
You know, in the military, collateral damage is acceptable. But you can't possibly see that as the case in the confines of our schoolhouses here in the state. Introducing firearms into a school environment without significant and regular training would be a travesty.
Do you know that the very fact that someone may have a gun is a deterrent to somebody else using one?
That's a fallacy, sir. More guns in schools is not a deterrent to anybody. When somebody is determined to do harm and do wrong, arming a classroom teacher is not going to help that.
Law enforcement officers go through extensive training to be prepared in moments of crisis. This bill proposes 144 hours of training. Only eight of those 144 hours are for active shooter training. 8 hours. That's one day.
I want to see teachers armed with the tools to be able to teach and to be able to support their children. I don't want teachers worried about where is my gun.
Despite speakers and legislators standing up for common sense solutions, the bill passed committee with opposition. The intrusive reach into local control continued this week. These preemptions continued under the guise of predictive scheduling, an issue that has not been brought up in Florida. Instead, they opened up the legislature's ability to outlaw any local ordinance dealing with the payment of wages, including recouping stolen wages, as well as human rights ordinances extending protections to all citizens.
Pre-employment screening, job classification determinations, job responsibilities, hours of work, schedules and schedule changes, wages, payment of wages, leave, paid or unpaid days off for holidays, illness, vacation, personal necessity, employee benefits such as retirement, profit sharing, health, disability, death, insurance benefit. Whew. That's a lot. We went from wages and benefits to that definition. We don't know the full ramifications of this, but if it really is just to get to this idea of predictive scheduling, then why is the word predictive scheduling not in here? For those reasons, we urge you to vote no on the bill.
The activists sent to the Capitol to fight on behalf of working families saw firsthand Tallahassee's war on their fellow Floridians. They stood up to the powerful forces, speaking against big money interests in committees and meeting with their elected leaders. The Lobby Corps participants shared their experiences.
I recommend that our members come up, learn the process, become a part of the process. Definitely worth the trip.
It was great to come up and actually see some of our legislative processes in action.
It's been a great time this week talking to the legislators and speaking to everybody and holding people accountable and finding out what they really think and what they're really doing.
It is powerful when they have to listen to labor, when labor is in the House.
I'm talking to my senator and now he knows who I am. He can put a face with me and he knows that he is speaking for us.
Come up here, get involved, be the voice of your union, be the voice of the working class, get involved in lobby weeks.
Solidarity! Seeing the legislature in action taught the Lobby Corps how to survive and fight on. Unfortunately, the struggle is not over as we face many more weeks of session.
What did he just say?
He said there's a storm coming in.
Now it is your turn to help us in the fight for our future. We are only strong when we stand together, so join the Working Family Lobby Corps in Tallahassee by visiting our website. Solidarity.